Hi, I'm Lauren Bregenster, the audio professor, and I'm going to walk you through mastering a track using just SSL plugins, all in Ableton Live. Now, I do use a digital limiter because SSL doesn't have a digital limiter because it's more of a digital device, and SSL is more of an analog processing type company. So other than a digital limiter, can you master a track using only SSL plugins? Absolutely. And there are a few here I'd like to throw next time I'm doing a real master for people. I certainly would look into using this Vintage Drive and this bus compressor, and perhaps a stereo imager as well. So those are all great tools for mastering. So stand by and watch and see how I master a track using SSL plugins in Ableton Live. All right, so let's master this thing. So first thing I'm gonna do in Ableton Live, there's a couple extra steps that you need to double check, but I'm just gonna go to my audio track. I'm gonna drag it into the range view. So I'm gonna take this SSL mix, drag it in there. Now, you need to make sure, let's take a second to analyze it, but you need to make sure that the warping is turned off. So I'm just done analyzing, it'll appear here. Otherwise, it'll be attempt to analyze what the beat of the song is and loop it like it's some big loop. Now, there's an option that you can turn the loops off in the preferences, but let's just go ahead and just double click on this track. In the detail view, I can see it's warped, so it's not going to be playing right. So I turn the warp off. Boom, done, easy enough. Another thing that I need to do is I don't need to follow along with bars and beats like I normally would with loops and sequences and stuff like that. So I'm going to right click and make sure that my fixed grid is turned off. That way I can freely drag this around. And also the same thing with hitting play, because otherwise it's going to have a grid. It might take a second to jump when I hit play. So I'm going to turn this off up here. Like I set it to none. So now when I go to jump to different parts of the song, it'll just instantly play. Another handy shortcut in Ableton Live is that if I play from the beginning and it gets to a certain point, every time I hit play, it's going to start from that same spot. But if you hold on the shift and hit the space bar, it'll continue playing from where it left off. So those are some shortcuts that'll save you some time. All right, so if I'm mastering this in Ableton Live, first thing I'm going to do is just trim the starts and stops. That way I don't forget to do it. Let's go to the top here. A little bit extra stuff in the intro. Probably want to start like this. Make sure my tiny fade is good. Go move the cursor over here, and I just do a little tiny fade if I want. Make sure it's okay. That's good. That'll help eliminate any pops and clicks. So let's go to the end and trim the end of the song. Right about there. So I'm going to trim that. And then just do a little fade and see how that sounds. Just a longer fade. All right, so I'm going to master this all using SSL plugins, with the exception of the digital limiter, since it doesn't come with a digital limiter. So I can see my SSL plugins over here in the browser. Now, a lot of these are great for mastering. The stereo image I'll use, the vintage drive I'll use to give it an analog sound. The bus compressor too, I'm going to use that. And I will probably wind up using the X-EQ too for that. So your signal flow, you can kind of go about things a few different ways. I might save like my analog processing, like the saturation from the vintage drive last, or I might do it first. And same with the stereo image. So I'm going to just start off with using that the drive on there. So I'm going to drop that on there. And reason being is because You know, if I EQ it, then the drive might bring out some stuff that's a little harsh, and I'll have to re-EQ that. So I'm going to put the bus this saturation first. So let's just. Now there's a lot of great presets for bus saturation. You know, that's the default there, and that's a little bit much, a little too edgy, a little too sizzly. So they have a lot of professional producer presets on here. And you can go through and play with these. I personally found a couple of these that I actually really liked. I really like this Michael Brower mix bus energy and vibe. So let's hear that on there. So that's really, really subtle. Some of them are less subtle, and some of them actually make the volume jump up, so it's hard to kind of A/B exactly what's going on. But that sounds good the way it is. So the next thing I'm going to do is jump into the EQ. So I'm going to grab that X-EQ and sort of decide what I want to do to it. I know that I want to add a little bit of low end boost, so I'm just going to double click a boost there. I'm going to add a little air on the EQ, and I'll probably pull out some a little bit of edge on the vocals. So let's just bring up some of the bring this back down a little bit. So just maybe 100 hertz or so. I'll go in there. And then I'm gonna, so rather than do a shelving filter, I usually just do a wide Q or a low Q, if you will, and bring the center frequency all the way up. So let's hear it. So I'm not trying to do anything too drastic. All right. Bring this down a little bit. Now, there's parts where his vocals become a little shrill, especially in the bridge. So our ears are most sensitive around that 2.5K to 3.5K. So I'm going to find that range in there. I'm going to boost it so I find where it's really extra painful. That's the stuff. I'm going to pull that down and use a tighter Q on that. All I gotta do is just attenuate a little bit of this mud here. So another thing I like about this EQ a lot, this is parallel mode, where it'll actually parallel process each band that you add as opposed to having them processed serially, which makes a little bit of a different sound, especially for mastering. I kind of like that. All right. That's good for that. Now, next thing I do is add that. I can do the stereo field a little bit now, or I can do it later, but after the compressor. Let's do the and I can always adjust the order of these later. But so this one can be a little bit tricky. So this allows you to adjust your stereo field using mid-side processing. And diving through the manual, this allows me to gives me sort of a couple of different bands to narrow and widen. And I usually want to sort of narrow the mid range here, or low range, I should say. Sometimes I'll full on mono it, but I just want to in this situation, I'll just sort of narrow anything below, 240 hertz here. And I'll widen everything just a little bit there and get a little nice stereo width adjustment there. So let's hear it sound. All right, so between the three of these, the Fusion and the EQ and I should say the Fusion Stereo, the EQ X-EQ2, and the Fusion Drive, I'm going to group those. The nice thing about Ableton Live, I can group those and just kind of hear them A-B'd all at once really easily. It's got a little more air, a little more space in there, so I like that. Let's add the bus compressor 2. So I already ran this through a bus compressor, so I'm not going to go too crazy with it, but I'm going to turn on my oversampling so I get no distortion with any potential high frequency anti-aliasing filter, and keep the release set to auto. I like the attack at 10, because anything lower than that, you start chopping off transients. I want to keep that attack of that kick and snare in there. And so I'm going to adjust the threshold. So I get maybe like 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction, and then adjust my makeup gain from there. So it looks like it's adding like 2.7 dB of attenuation. So I'm going to A/B this on and off. And it makes it sound like everything's kind of brought forward a little closer to you. So that I really like. So let's group all four of these in one. Let's hear those all turn on and off at once. Yeah, that's got a lot more magic to it. So the last step is the digital limiting. Now, the SSL plugins don't come with any sort of digital limiting. So I'm just going to grab a digital limiter that sounds great and it's easy to use. I'm going to grab the Brainworx digital True Peak limiter. And that way I don't have to worry about the True Peak. I can get rid of this. And, again, like my previous projects, I wanted to set those so the True Peak was at -1 and the LUFS was about between -11 and 10, somewhere around there. Somewhere just hovers around -11. So first thing I do is I can set my ceiling to -1. I'm not going to do anything too fancy because I don't want the coloration of this. I just want this to sound like a good clean digital limiter. So my True Peak's going to be at 0. I think the gain when I was practicing this was about 7 dB or so, maybe 8. And then we'll check it out on the Youlean Loudness Meter. The Youlean Loudness Meter is free, and you can use whatever digital limiter you personally like. I have a whole bunch that I jump around to. Okay, so I think that works for me. I'm going to give it maybe another half dB, go 8.5. Now, the target LUFS that you're aiming for, that's up to you. Absolutely make sure that your LUFS is higher than minus 12, and I like kind of like minus 11-ish area because minus 12 is safe because Spotify will play back at minus 14, and many others play about minus 14. So I want to make sure you're a little bit above that. So minus 12-ish is good. Anything above minus 10 is a little bit, depending on your style, a little bit less dynamic than I would personally like. All right, so last thing I need to do is I have my levels set, my digital limiter set, my out set. I'm just going to eyeball this, make sure the duration's correct. And this goes to, looks to be about like 104.3. So I'm just going to select this all, and then I'm going to go to export, and then file export audio video. 103.01. That should be fine. Now, I don't need an analysis file. I'm going to set it wave 24-bit because that's a good streaming. Make sure dither is set to whatever, but triangular is fine. And then let's just export this thing. Let's go to standing master SSL, and we'll actually export it. Okay, so the last thing you want to do is check your master. So go into your hard drive and make a new set or whatever, but make absolute sure, listen to your master, make sure nothing's gone wrong with the mastering process, and make sure there's no pops and clicks and it sounds right and it looks good on the meters to where you want it. Maybe double check the LUFS levels. And other than that, there you have your master. So thanks for watching and have fun making music.